Well, hi, friends. Welcome back to Embrace the Question. So good to be with you. We're still doing our Bible study through Exodus in our Bible Study with Me series. Exodus chapter 32. The end is in sight here, but I think this is one of the more intriguing chapters. Moses has been concealed in the mountain for 40 days. 40 days. And the whole nation of Israel is at the bottom of the mountain wondering, where did he go? He surely perished. And we see a lot of what would be considered licentious behavior as a result. This one has so much to talk about. So much to talk about. And I'm kind of jonesing to start. But before we do, please remember to subscribe and share this with a friend who needs to get into a Bible study. We've got a lot of these piled up now, so you could literally stay in a Bible study for months at this point by just going back and starting from the beginning of Genesis and following us along and taking some notes. Be a great thing to do, even as a mid-year exercise. So I invite you to do that. I invite you to visit the sponsor of solwaycoffee.com. That's what I like to drink. Solway Coffee. SOLWAY coffee.com. It helps me stay up late nights and look at scriptures. Paints a nice picture. All right, let's get started here with Exodus 32. All right, here we go. Exodus 32, reading from the English Standard Version. I'm using the eSword app. It is a free download if you don't have a Bible app on your PC. It even has an iOS version if you want to load it up on your iPad or your iPhone, which I also do. It's very handy and completely free. e-sword.net. So check that one out. Exodus 32, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." All right, I've got a lot to say on this stuff, so bear with me. Try to dig in. Pretend like you've never read this story before. That's always a key. Moses hasn't shown up. They turn to Aaron, Moses' brother, and say, "Hey, you're the leader that's left. Make us gods." And the Hebrew there is Elohim. Make us gods who shall go before us. Now, there's no indication that anybody really believed that the image was the god. They believed, rather, that the gods attached themselves to these images or to these idols, these statues. Gods were representative. They were represented by the object in most cases, and that's what the people wanted. They wanted a new representation. I think what gets my attention here is Moses has been gone nearly 40 days, right? And the people have gone through all kinds of spiritual highs. They've seen their enemies float to the surface on the Red Sea. They have seen water come out of a rock. They've seen bitter wells healed. They've seen a lot of miracles. They've been eating manna off the ground. But they're not attributing that to the power of an involved, daily provisional God. So as a result, their thought is, let's create one. And what they'll end up creating is not anything that you might think is an image of a god. Even the Greeks did better than these guys did. The Greeks made at least godlike images that look like humans, because humans were made in the image of God, right? But they didn't do that. They're making God into one of his own created beings. And we're going to find that out here in another verse. So let's keep going. So verse 2, so Aaron said to them, take off your rings of gold that are in your ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. They're in your ears. He wants earrings. All right, so verse 3, so all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. How I am kind of reconciling this is they're selling off their hearing. It's the picture that I'm getting. They've sold off their hearing. It's a picture of give me your ear, lend me your ear, lend me your earrings. So what you are going to follow from this point forward is going to be something that you're going to give your ear to, not the real God. Will you buy that? It's just something that I'm picking up in the text. Verse 4, and he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, these are your gods, Elohim, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Interesting choice of words, because God has already identified himself. I am your God, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. They have taken that and they have shifted it to something else. Okay, when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. So Aaron is kind of stuck in this limbo between absolute idolatry and kind of, I think, in his heart, knowing that the Lord God is a real God, not a piece of gold, and he's still in charge. And let's shift and make this a feast unto the Lord. I think Aaron's wrestling here. That's what I'm getting from this event so far. Okay. And they arose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now, the word play here is sexual in connotation. It has several different meanings, but it's the same word that's used when Abimelech looks at Abraham and Sarah playing and realizes, wait a minute, these guys aren't brother sister. Same word. Okay, so there's some, again, licentious behavior starting to occur here in verse 6. Verse 7, and the Lord said to Moses, go down, for your people, notice the choice of words God's using, your people, Moses, whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. All right, it's written like God is trying to distance himself from his people. In verse 8, they have turned aside quickly out of the way that I have commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. God hears. God always knows. Nothing is secret. Verse 9, and the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. I use this term a lot, usually in jest about my own friends, and they are a stiff-necked people. I are a stiff-necked people too sometimes. It just means you're stubborn. You don't want to change how you think, how you act, how you do anything. And it is a recurring theme for Israel, we find out. Verse 10, now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them in order that I may make a great nation of you. So what is he telling Moses? He's like, stand back, I'm going to wipe them out, and we're going to start all over with you, and you're going to become the new Abraham. The promise is going to shift to you, Moses, because I'm going to do a big reset here. And we're going to find out, I believe with all my heart, that this is a bit of a test. I really do. I believe this is a test, because if I am to judge from Jesus, and I filter everything through Jesus as being the true picture of the heart of God, then I don't believe any of this destruction is God's will. Now, I know that there are probably some people out there that would argue that point, but they would lose it with me, because I will not be altered from that IRS stiff-necked people. I believe Jesus is the picture of God personified. The very Spirit of God wrapped in human flesh. The Word became flesh in Jesus. Jesus didn't demonstrate things like what we're seeing, so this particular thing for sure, a test. All right, stay with me here and we'll look more at it. But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, "Oh Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against," notice the choice of words, "your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand?" So it's your people, Lord, and you brought them out of the land of Egypt. God had just said, "Moses, these are your people that you brought out of the land of Egypt." Moses has flipped it properly, like a priest would, and said, "Oh Lord, no. These are your people. You brought them out of the land of Egypt." And he's going to continue here in verse 12. "Why should the Egyptians and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger and relent from this disaster against your people." What is Moses being? He's being a priest. Test passed. God is always looking for a priest. What did he do with Abraham and Sodom and Gomorrah? Abraham said, "Lord, what if you found 50 people?" The Lord said, "Yeah, I won't destroy it if you find 50. What if you found 40? Yeah, I won't destroy it." The Lord is always looking for a priest. Always. And that's what he was looking for here, and he found a good one in Moses. All right, verse 13. "Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, 'I will multiply your offspring as the stars of the heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever.'" Moses still talking. "And the Lord relented from the disaster that he had spoken of bringing on his people." Okay, it seems like then crisis averted. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's go a little further. "Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets that were written on both sides, on the front, and on the back they were written." Okay, that'll give us a little imagery of how the tablets actually were presented. On the front and the back they were written. "These tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets by his own handwriting." I would love to have seen that, right? Verse 17, "When Joshua, who was with Moses, he heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, 'There is a noise of war in the camp.' But he said, 'It is not the sound of shouting for victory or the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing that I hear.'" Maybe worship. "And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain." We have the famous Charlton Heston scene where he's doing the very same, right? Most of us have seen that. "He took the calf that they had made and burned it with fire and ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the people of Israel drink it." This is a very provoking verse. It reminds me of another passage in Numbers chapter 5. What's that one about? Numbers chapter 5 is about the unfaithful wife. So a jealous husband can present his wife to a priest if he suspects that she's cheating on him. unfaithful wife. The priest will sweep a little dust off of the floor of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, into some water in a cup and make, along with some other things, you'll have to read the whole chapter, but eventually the woman that is a suspect will have to drink this. And it's a little bit Salem witch trial to be, that's the best comparison I have. Salem witch trials were, well, if you survive this, then you're guilty and we'll kill you. And if you don't survive it, then you were innocent. And whoops, we made a mistake. That was the gist of the Salem witch trial type trials, right? Very, very ugly time. This seems similar to that. You drink it, she's going to get uncomfortable. Well, she's drinking dust and water for one, but this is supposed to render her in a lot of pain, unable to bear children if she's guilty, which will acquire the reproach of the entire camp if she's guilty. If she's not guilty, then she'll be fine, but she'll still be sick for a day, right? It's not perfect. So this reminds me of that. Why? Because Israel has been unfaithful. She is the unfaithful wife. You see the similarities. And they have to drink it. Verse 20, verse 21. And Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you, that you have brought such a great sin upon them? And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people, that they are set on evil. Aaron's part in this is forever a mystery to me, because he's messed up so badly, and he's going to cost the nation of Israel lives. But he gets off, it seems, nearly scot-free. Only we find out later that his own sons kind of inherit a lot of his troubles. So maybe nobody really got off scot-free. But Aaron is a question mark here. Don't let your anger burn of my Lord. Don't let the anger of my Lord burn hot, if I can learn to read. So he's imploring Moses, his brother, verse 23, for they said to me, make us gods, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So I said to them, let any who have gold take it off. So they gave it to me, I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. This is a classic third grade excuse, if ever I have seen one, right? This is one of the most humorous attempts at covering yourself that you can find in Scripture. Adam and Eve, Adam did better than this. That woman you gave me, she deceived me, handed me the fruit. I thought it was regular peas. Of course, he was lying. And I think Aaron's pretty much lying here. But we have a recreation of the problem, don't we? We have a recreation of the problem. It's that woman you gave me. It's this people that you gave me to take care of. They said to me, make us gods who shall go before us. We don't know what happened to Moses. Verse 24. So I said to them, let any who have gold take it off. They gave to me. I threw it in the fire. Out came this calf. And when Moses saw that the people had broken loose, for Aaron had let them break loose to the derision of their enemies. This is a strange passage. Break loose. Your translation may say, when Moses saw that the people were naked. They'd been dancing, right? They'd been playing. Many of these people are just having an orgy, to be blunt. They have broken loose. They're naked, doing what they want. And even as Moses is standing there, apparently still doing so. I mean, Moses came back, hey, why break up the party? To the derision of their enemies, even the Amalekites around the edges of the camp, those that still lived in the mountains, they can see, they can hear. Even they're ashamed of what's going on in the camp by the way I'm reading this. And Moses stood at the gate of the camp and said, who's on the Lord's side, come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. So he had the attention of the sons of Levi, of which he is one. Moses is a Levite. Okay. It's unclear as to how loud Moses is talking. Did the whole camp of Israel hear his invitation to come over to his side? If they're partying hardy, then chances are then they're not paying any attention. They are having fun and wrapped up completely in what they're doing. So it seems to me that there's a good chance the party still continues while Moses is fuming. He still sees that they have broken loose. All right. And he said to them, thus says the Lord God of Israel, put your sword on your side, each of you, and go to and fro from gate to gate throughout the camp. And each of you kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And that day about 3,000 people, or men of the people, fell. Okay, we liken this to Pentecost when 3,000 were added to the church. This was Pentecost. This event happened during the Feast of Pentecost, the first one, if you can imagine. Moses bringing the law down from the mountain. Okay, crazy stuff. This is why people really have a difficulty finding God to be a God of grace. This reads like a God of violence. This reads like a God of vengeance. We can't tell from the text how much of this was God's idea and how much of this was Moses' idea. But Moses was livid. All right. It seems that when Moses talked God off the ledge, so to speak, up on top of the mountain, God was good. And Moses came down, and then Moses got angry, which I would have also, seeing what he saw. And the sons of Levi, though, they seem to have set themselves apart and come over to the side of Moses when he beckons, and about 3,000 men fell. And the instructions were, even if it's your friend, even if it's your brother, even if it's your neighbor, if they're involved in this, you are allowed to wreak out vengeance upon them. Okay. Take it for what the text says. And Moses said, today you have been ordained. He's talking to his Levites. You've been ordained for the service of the Lord, each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, so that he might bestow a blessing upon you this day. It probably was not an easy sell. You really want us to go kill the people we find involved in this? Yes, go. Tough day. The next day, Moses said to the people, you have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, alas, this people has sinned a great sin. They've made for themselves gods of gold. But now if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written. So Moses is saying, forgive their sin or blot me out. That's a pretty good priest. That's a good priestly heart now that he's back in the presence of God. He didn't really have that priestly heart down at the base of the mountain, but now that he's back in the presence, he's got the priestly heart again. Blot me out if you can't forgive them. And the Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Okay. This is the Lord disarming Moses. He's like, I will not blot you out. You leave that to me, and who sinned against me? That's between me and them. All right, verse 34. But now go, lead the people to the place about which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. Then the Lord sent a plague on the people because they made the calf, the one that Aaron made. What's the plague? I'm assuming that it is the result of them drinking the water, because that was an immediate thing. It took time for the water to enter the system. It took time for the results of all of that to manifest, just like in Numbers chapter 5. Crazy, isn't it? This is not the time to be sowing your wild oats if you are a young Israelite during the times of Moses. This is time to be paying attention, eyes straight ahead, nose to the grindstone, so to speak. Tough time. Well, I really love that one. I really do. It's interesting. It's difficult to reconcile all of that. It's difficult. Jesus says, or John writes in John, his gospel, chapter 1, the law came through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. So everything that I read in the Old Testament, I filter through. Did Jesus demonstrate this? Did he teach it? Is this the kind of things, is this what he did? Is this how he treated the woman caught in the act of adultery? And if the answer is no, then I have reason to suspect that the writer in Exodus's time, Moses is the one attributed to have written this, right? He might have taken some liberties. He might have written it through his own slant. We know that happened. We know for a fact that happened in Old Testament text. So I have to filter everything through Jesus when I'm reading this, and I'm trying to glean truth through one filter and one filter only. Jesus. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. I did. I always do. It's nice once again to be with you. I hope to be with you without waiting another 2 weeks. You guys have a blessed week, and I will see you very, very soon. Peace.